You don't need thousands of listeners to make money on your podcast anymore. Libsyn just changed the rules. So now even a small indie shows can cash in. But here's the real question. Does getting paid actually make your show better? Well, let's find out.
Sound matters. Be heard. Welcome to the podcast where you get exclusive behind-the-scenes tips to make your own show sound truly spectacular. This is Podtastic Audio.
Hey, what's happening? How are you doing today? Thank you so much for being here. I am Chris, and you clicked on the right show at the right time at the right place, baby. This is the world-famous Podtastic Audio. It's great to say that. Now, I love podcasting. I love audio creation mostly, although I will dabble a little bit in video. But hey, video is not really my thing. It's more audio creation and audio podcasting. And I realize that audio might not be for everybody, and creating audio might not be for everybody. But hey, you do your podcast however you want to do your show. It's your show, man. There's no rules in podcasting. You do whatever you want. And when I mean podcasting, I mainly am talking about the audio side of podcasting, the RSS feed distribution coming from a podcast media host, going out to all the podcast audio players that are out there. I'm talking Apple, Spotify, Good Pods, iHeartRadio, Amazon's got a player now, and there's a bunch of them out there. Castamatic, CastPod, Pod this, Pod whatever. There's a whole bunch of places that you physically can listen to a podcast. The one that I like to listen to podcasts on, because I'm old school and I like to keep things simple, is Apple Podcasts. I have an iPhone. I've always had iPhones since iPhone 1 or 2, whatever it was, way back in the day. And since then, I've stuck with Apple Podcasts. And the only time I ever dabbled with iHeartMedia or iHeartRadio, whatever it is on there, the only time I ever did that was when my favorite morning show was on Apple Podcasts. And for some reason, since they're an iHeart company, they decided to go exclusively on the iHeartRadio app. And that's the only time I really messed around with that app. And I was like, get back to Apple Podcasts. My goodness. And so they did. And they switched back to Apple Podcasts, and it's all good. So if your show really isn't in Apple Podcasts, I'll dabble a little bit in Spotify, but it's not my main podcast player of choice. My podcast player of choice is Apple Podcasts. Say what it is. I love it. It's simple. It's for the masses. And most people have iPhones, and most people use Apple Podcasts. So I guess I'm a basic B like the rest of them all. But hey, you listen to your show or this show wherever you want. And that's the beauty of having an RSS feed standard podcasting. I like to call it podcasting classic versus YouTube or any of the other video platforms out there. When you have an audio podcast, it can be listened to on all of the different apps, not just the one, not just the YouTube or the TikTok or the whatever. So that's why I love podcasting. It gives you the freedom and the flexibility for the listener to have great choices available to them. Now, considering you have a normal podcast, a podcast classic, you probably are hosting your media files on a standard podcasting media host. There are plenty of them out there. Now, probably one of the biggest ones in the game has got to be Libsyn, Libsyn. They've been around, I think, since the beginning. They were probably one of the original, if not the original, podcast media host that made things very convenient and very easy for us newbies and normal people. I'll call them normies, really, that aren't really computer hackers or computer geeks, don't know the coding behind it all, don't know how to code RSS. Are you kidding me? I wouldn't even know what to do with that. So I rely on companies like Libsyn, Podbean, Transistor, Buzzsprout, Captivate, all those podcast media hosts. We all kind of rely on them to get our podcasts out there to the masses. So if you don't know how podcasting works, here's a simple little rundown. You take your MP3 media file, you upload it to your account on one of these podcast media hosts, and then you set go. And you kind of have to link up some of the directories where it could end up at, like say Spotify or iHeart or Apple, things like that. But once you set those things up, all you have to do is really upload your MP3 just the one time to the one place, and then it gets distributed to all the places automatically. And most of these podcast hosts have lots of different features. Some have AI editing tools built into them. Some let you do chapter markers. Some do not. Some let you do dynamic ads in there, and some do not. And there's a lot of variety of different things a lot of these podcast media hosts do. A lot of them are priced based on usage. So, for example, if you upload, say, 50 episodes a month, then you might need a bigger tier plan because you're probably using a bunch of space. Versus if you only uploaded, say, like one episode a month, you could probably get down to a very basic plan, almost every plan. Now, some charge money, some are free, and kind of variety of both. What I have seen is that the middle of the road price plan for most of these podcast media hosts, it's usually around $20 a month-ish. Some are lower, some are higher. And since we're talking about technology here, prices and features change all the time. Some places pop up, some places disappear. So it's with anything in technology. So just keep that in mind when you're shopping around for your podcast media host. So speaking of media hosts, and speaking of the fact that this show right here is hosted on Libsyn, Libsyn's got to be one of the biggest podcast media hosts on the planet. And they just announced something quite amazing. They just announced something that's a game changer for us indie, smaller podcasts. Now, if you host on Libsyn, this is what they have said. They've said that now they have completely removed all the download requirements to run ads on your podcast. That's right. Whether you get 5 downloads an episode or 5,000 or 10,000, it does not matter. They have opened up the floodgates for any show the host on Libsyn can run paid ads on your podcast and start getting paid with them right away. Yeah, you heard that right. Any show with any size audience now qualifies to get paid by running ads on their podcast, on your podcast immediately. And that's one thing with podcasting, especially as an indie podcast here, is that we always kind of look up to the bigger shows. And a lot of the bigger shows have tons of ads in them. And they're always flooding their show with ads. I know I started listening to the Gavin Newsom show, his podcast. I swear it's got to have it feels like 10 minutes of ads. It might be that, it might be less than that. I don't know, but it feels like forever. I do know that when I press play on his show, he doesn't come on to the show with his regular content until at least 3 to 3.5 minutes of ads play. And then somewhere in the middle, probably another 3 minutes worth of ads. And then at the end, there's probably another 3 to 5 minutes worth of ads. So there's probably, 9-10 minutes of ads on the podcast. So if you wanted to do that too with your show, you now can on Libsyn. But, that kind of got me thinking, why do we feel like our podcasts need to make money to matter? Today we're talking about Libsyn, money, and validation, and why your podcast might already be successful without even earning a dime. Okay, so a while back when we were doing the Chris and Christine show, probably middle of 2020, 2021-ish, somewhere around there, it was presented to me that there was a small company that was running ads or having you run ads in your podcast, and especially for smaller podcasts, like this indie podcast. And the name of the company is, I can't remember what the name was. I think they went out of business or they changed names or something like that. But anyways, they basically paid us through PayPal. It wasn't very much. I think we were getting paid somewhere in the ballpark of $2 per ad read, I think it was, for the show. And one of their ad reads was their company or their product. And there was a few other ones on there too. So you get the script out. I would read them and I would, do the ad in the show or insert it in the show. And then I would have the timestamp in the episode, have to send it back to them to verify. And I think they paid us like once a month or something like that. So, $2 an episode, 4 episodes a month. What is it, like $8 a month? We're not talking serious dollars. We're talking like $8 a month. So that was something we did back then. But for some reason, I think some people, when they heard our show, they thought, oh my gosh, these guys must be big time. They actually are running ads on their show. And I'm not talking the inserted commercial ads that you hear on every radio station or things like that. What I'm talking about, the things we did back then, they were actually host-read ads. I read the ads myself, and I recorded them myself, and I inserted in the podcast myself. So they're host-read ads. The thing that Libsyn is doing is not that. What Libsyn is doing is your standard commercials you hear on the radio, you hear on regular other podcasts, all of the programmatic regular ads. These are automatic ads. Libsyn's ad program. Now, it used to be that if you wanted to get into their ad program on Libsyn, your podcast, yes, it has to be hosted on Libsyn, but you had to get at least 2,000 downloads per month on your show, which for some big shows, that's like nothing. They get that in an episode, whatever. But I think for most of us indie podcasters, I think the average, according to Buzzsprout's global stats, I like to look at Buzzsprout's global stats because they're filled with indie podcasters on Buzzsprout. So their numbers truly reflect what an indie podcaster is getting or should be getting. And according to their numbers, I think it's something like an average 50% of podcasts get somewhere around 28 downloads per episode. Let's just say 30, round up, 30 downloads per episode. Now, if you times that by 4 episodes a month or whatever it is and all that, it's still way less than 2,000 downloads a month. So most indie podcasters were probably disqualified for running ads in their podcast that host on Libsyn. So yeah, now they've changed the game and they said, you know what? You don't need the 2,000 anymore. You can have any limit you have. It doesn't matter. No minimum is required. But even still, there's still some caveats here. One is that according to this, you cannot have any kids content or kids related podcasts. With those, it says you need still 20,000 downloads a month to qualify. Well, that seems kind of weird. And also I heard from Rob Walsh on Libsyn. He was saying that you actually need to make sure your show isn't doing any kind of like pornographic material. So if you're giving, say, a sex ed class and it's not really a class, it's just sex and it's not really ed, if you're doing a show like that, you get what I'm saying. The advertisers are pulling back on shows like that. They will not advertise if your show is like that. So basically, no kids shows and no sex talk shows. Anything else, you're pretty much fair game to qualify to become an ad running podcast right here on Libsyn. But like I said, the ads aren't your choosing. You cannot read the ad into the podcast and be your own voice and your own spin on the ad. You can't do that. It's not like a sponsorship or anything like that. It's these already created, already done up professional commercials that get slapped in your show. And you get to choose, do you want them at the beginning or the middle or the end? Now, you also can add how many you want at the beginning, the middle, and the end. So if you're getting somewhere around, say, 100 downloads an episode and you run a few ads, you might make $7 to $10 for that episode. But you know what? $7 to $10 get you? It doesn't pay for rent. It doesn't even get you gas in your car. $7 to $10 might cover almost half your hosting on that platform. Okay, so realistically, let's break it down on how much you can physically make and how they're paying it out and how they're doing it. So they're doing things based on the CPM model. That stands for cost per milli or cost per thousand. I don't know where they get this milli from, but I like to call it cost per thousand. So every 1,000 downloads you get on your show. And of course, since you're hosting on Libsyn, they already know your downloads. You can't fake them. Well, we'll get more into that later, but they already know what you're getting on your shows. You can't just take a screenshot of something that's completely ridiculous because they already see what you're getting on your show. Now, the industry average is $18 to $25 CPM. So let's break this down. If you're getting 100 downloads per episode, which I think is fairly healthy for an indie show to get 100 downloads per episode. So you say you get 100 downloads, just to keep things simple, 100 downloads and you do one ad slot, you're going to get yourself $2. Woohoo, $2. Now, say you add 3 to 4 ad slots, you're getting somewhere between $6 and $10. Now, if you run 4 episodes per month, you're talking somewhere in the ballpark of $24 to $40 per month. Now, that is enough to cover your podcast media hosting on Libsyn, and it may cover some, if not all, of whatever recording software you like to use. Say, for example, you like to use Riverside. You can pay for Riverside out of that too. So basically, you can make some money that's going to cover the hobby of podcasting right out of the gate. Now, I know this isn't crazy money. It's not enough to quit your day job. I get that. But it's a start. And if you do get more downloads than 100, I just threw that number out there, but if you do get more downloads than 100 per episode, then of course you can make more. But wait, there's more. You actually, if you wanted to, and you had a big back catalog, you could do this for all of your past episodes. So if you look at your downloads, you will see that, yes, the downloads come in for the episode of the week, but you also get downloads for past episodes. And they know that too. So yeah, you can insert this into previous episodes that you've already released from way back in the day. If they get plays or downloads, guess what? They get listens. And if they get listens, advertisers want to put their advertisements on that. Okay, so here's the biggest elephant in the room right now is Libsyn, being a big company, being that they have got strict standards on what they want to put their ads up against. And they had this strict rule of 2,000 downloads a month minimum. Like, why did they change it? Like, why would they take it off and make it a free reign for everybody? Well, maybe it's a thought. Maybe they're competing with places like Spotify, Acast. There's a few other ones out there that do very similar things. They place ads on your show so you can get a free hosting and things like that. Maybe that's their whole motto. Maybe they're trying to do that. Or maybe they realize there's only a small handful of shows that actually qualified under the 2,000 rule. And there's all these other shows sitting there doing nothing, having no opportunity to run ads on their show. And Libsyn's like, why don't we open up to everybody? Because more the merrier. The more inventory they have, the more shows they can put ads on. At the end of the day, if it's $25 CPM to the advertiser, it doesn't even matter if they're paying the $25 CPM on a show with 10,000 downloads or a show that gets 5 downloads. The ad rate is still the same. So I always kind of scratched my head and kind of wondered why some places won't even touch you if you got X amount of downloads or less, because I thought the ad rate was always the same no matter where you did it. But maybe they want to mess with it. Maybe they don't want to deal with all the micro payments. They want to deal with big outputs and big payments. And speaking of payments, you're wondering, how do I get paid if I do this? It's all done through PayPal. And not only is it done through PayPal, they do it every, month. They said they do it. But here's the catch with that too, is that you have to earn at least, it's $20 to get paid out. So if you run ads, let's say $2, $3 ads here and there, you have to wait until you build up at least $20 worth to pay out. So the payouts are at $20 increments. So if you go above 20, of course, I'll pay you out. But you have to hit at least $20 to get a payout with Libsyn Ads. But hey, at the end of the day, podcast hosting is an actual business. Yeah, they're there to make money too, of course. And Libsyn knows that more shows that host on Libsyn and the more shows that come over to Libsyn to monetize with their ads program, the more people will stick around with their platform and maybe even upgrade their plan, because Libsyn, like all the other plans, there's like a bottom tier and there's a higher tier and all these different tier levels in between. And Libsyn knows, just like all the other podcast media hosts know, is that the more people you have hosting with your company, the more people pay you money each month, of course, it adds up. And I think advertisers know this too, because the more places they can place ads, the more spots spread out in the podcast universe. Even if the show gets 5 downloads, that's 5 more chances that their ad can be heard and listened to anywhere. So that kind of handles the business side of things, the Libsyn side of things, how that works over there. But us indie podcasters, why do we need to do this? Do we have to do this? Is it something that we are compelled to do, to run ads on our show? Why is there this like pressure coming from everywhere thinking that we as podcasters have to make money with our show? It's this weird phenomenon where everybody who has a podcast, they immediately will ask you, they'll say, hey, you got a podcast? Great. How much money are you making from your show? And I've been asked that question before. Have you been asked that question before? How much money are you making from your podcast? And that's kind of like the weird like benchmark for success in podcasting is if you say, oh, my podcast generates X amount of dollars, or I make this or whatever, or something like that. And for some weird reason, it's like the only hobby in existence where people say, how much money are you making from your hobby? I mean, you don't say that to somebody who plays golf. If you got a friend that plays golf right now, have you ever gone up to your friend and said, hey, how much did PGA send you a check for last month for playing golf? It doesn't happen because we just understand they play golf for a hobby, for fun, and they know and we know they're not on the PGA Tour. But for some weird reason, it's like this understanding in the general community that everybody who has a podcast does it because they have to make money from their show. That's kind of a weird place to be. But if you're a podcaster, which I hope you are, suddenly your value seems tied to CPMs, sponsors, and affiliate links. And if you're not making any money, I mean, people assume your show isn't any good at all. And that's not the truth at all. You know your show's great. You know your show's good. You don't have to make money to have a great show. And some of the best podcasts in the world make no money at all from it because they actually love doing it. You know, with podcasting here, there seems like there's 2 levels of validation when you create your podcast. One, obviously, is the downloads. Oh, how many downloads do you get? How many subscribers do you have on your YouTube channel? How many subs do you get? How many views do you get? How many, listeners do you get? It's just a numbers game. And the second thing really, of course, is the money game. How much money do you make from your show? How much money you're making? Oh, are you doing this full time? You quit your day job? I mean, it almost seems like if you don't have big numbers on either one of those, then your show isn't any good. And that's not true at all. Money or downloads, it's a very easy number to measure, but impact, how your show resonates with listeners, you can't really measure that with a number. Podcasting can be whatever you want it to be. It can be fun, and I believe in fun podcasting first, because if it's not fun for you to do this, then all this other stuff, the ads, the sponsors, the downloads, whatever, all the other stuff means nothing if you yourself as a podcast creator isn't having any fun doing your show. Like I said before, your podcast can be whatever it is. It can be about whatever you want to talk about. It can be creative. It can be fun. It can be therapy. It can be your legacy. It can be whatever it is. Have fun. I mean, I get it. I totally do. We all want to be successful. We want all of our shows to be successful. But I think the biggest success is showing up every single week, connecting with someone, even if it's one person. Just one person. You don't need ads to validate that. Okay, so here's the biggest question of all for us indie podcasters. If you're hosting on Libsyn, should you run ads on your show? Well, here are some pros and cons for running ads as an indie podcaster on your show. Starting with pro number 1, well, that's the obvious one. There's no barrier to entry. Any show with any size audience, even if you have just one listener, can qualify to run ads in your show. Well, sounds like a pretty good pro to me. Also, speaking of which, is that this becomes fully passive, which means you put the ads in there, they play automatically. You don't have to record anything. You don't have to do anything. They're there in the spots that you assign it. Say, for example, you want to assign it in the beginning or the middle or the end. Anywhere you want, you can slip them in, and it's already automatic, easy peasy. There's not much else to really do with it. Once it's set up, it runs, it's good to go. Another pro is that you can monetize your back catalog. So sounds pretty good, right? Because if you've got like 400 episodes, you can insert these ads in all of them. Do all of them all at once. More episodes, the merrier, which means you can get paid off of those. It's based per download. So think about this, how many downloads you're getting in any monthly time frame, say per month, for example. Well, you figure that out per ad, and you can kind of figure out how much money you could possibly be making. Sounds wonderful, right? Like I said, it's also very easy to set up. And if you want to, turn it off. It's not like you turn it on and it's stuck forever. You can flip it on, flip it off, change it around, mix it up, do it however you want. You can add also as many ads as you want. Although I wouldn't go too crazy with adding like 1,000 ads on a 5-minute episode. I would advise against that. Now, here are the cons for running ads as an indie podcaster. Well, con number one is that the payouts are very low. You got to already figure that out. I mean, for an indie podcast, we're talking like $2, $5, maybe $10 really at the most here, per ad or whatever. So it's not a ton of money. So keep that in mind when you start to run ads on your show, that you're only running these to make a few dollars, not a few $100. Unless your show gets thousands and thousands of downloads per episode. And if you do, great. Cash it in. That's fantastic. Another con is that the ad may be slightly off on what your show is about. Say, for example, if you're doing a show about sobriety, and then the ad they pick is a alcoholic beverage, say Jack Daniels, for example, gets advertised in your sobriety show. It might look a little weird. It might piss off some people. It may not, say the audience might be like, what is he doing? What is that about? So you gotta really have to figure out what you're doing and make sure that the ad really is a good fit for your show. But you may not know, it may randomly pick an ad based on the category you pick. So think about the category that would be a good fit for your show. And also too, like, for example, if you are doing a show about, pregnant mothers, and your advertisements are like dude stuff, like barbecues, grills, and power tools, it may not fit quite right. So keep that in mind. And because these are programmatic ads, the generic radio station ads, the ones you hear all the time, the ads like that, ads you don't make, they make, it kind of gives you less control of what's being said on your podcast. I mean, obviously, all these ads are probably G-rated. They're probably radio-friendly, which is fine. But it doesn't give you as much control as you would like if you did your own sponsorship, your own ad, your own thing. And the last con I have here is that if you are doing an indie hobby podcast, which I hope you are, which I am, is that it's going to make your hobby feel a little more transactional. It's going to make you feel like a sellout. At least to the listener anyways. They're going to be like, this guy sold out. This show was so much fun. It was easy to listen to. Now it's filled with ads of crap I don't even want to buy. Now, if you are a listener and you hear shows that have a lot of ads, you know and I know where that skip button is. And let me tell you, I skip away when I hear ads on a show. I just do. And I know that when I plug my phone in to my Apple CarPlay in my truck, I've got the steering wheel controls. I can controls on the dash. I can skip it from the steering wheel, and I can skip it from the dash on the Apple CarPlay screen. Or if you have the phone in your hand, you can do that. Now, in fact, when I was at Podcast Movement, I was talking to Rob Walsh in person about this very same thing. And I said to the guy, I said, hey, I know you're all about ads and all this stuff. And I said, you realize that advertising and podcasting, people can skip the ads. They can't do that in regular radio. When you're listening to a regular radio station, regular FM channels, regular radio, and a commercial comes on, what do? Either turn it down or you change the station. And that's what people do with regular radio. You can't skip. In fact, I was listening to a radio station and a commercial came on, and I immediately went for the skip button on my steering wheel. But what that actually did was it did the seek forward button, which seeked towards up the FM band to the next station available or whatever it did. Like, oh crap, I forgot. This is not a podcast. This is regular radio. And when it comes to podcasting, what I told Rob is that you can skip these. People do skip these things. And he says, well, we're assuming that people put their phone in their pocket after they select the podcast they want to listen to. They put the phone in their pocket. They work out at the gym, or they're going for a walk, or they're doing something else. And so the option to skip isn't easily available. And I get that. That does happen. But let me tell you, you can skip ads on a podcast. It's very easy. You hit the skip 30-second or whatever it is button, skip away. And most of these ads, guess what? They're 30 seconds long. So if you skip once, you skip again, and you skip again, chances are you may not even miss the content because it may just land you right at the start of the show after you skip those first 4 30-second ads. Hey, don't tell Libsyn I said that. But running ads on your podcast is not the only way to make money from podcasting. There are other ways to make money with podcasting. The better way to run some kind of an ad in your show is probably a host-read ad. This is a more trusted format. It is a more listened to format. If you're listening to a show and the host kind of goes right into an ad and it's by them talking directly to you, and the ad actually fits what you're doing, what the show is about, you're more inclined to actually listen to that versus a random commercial you heard on the radio last week. They're playing on your show today, which might make people tune out. So if you can read the ad yourself, a host-read ad is worth way more than a standard generic commercial. Another way to make money with your podcast is to have affiliate links. Most companies have affiliate programs out there. And the way these programs work is probably the better way for the companies, because when you advertise their product with your affiliate link, the customer or listener goes through that link to buy the thing that you told them to buy. And that's how they track that customer came through you, and then they pay you a portion. The payouts are usually more than these CPM rates, but it's basically meaning that you have to sell their product. You have to get them, meaning the listener, to buy the product. So you kind of are like a salesman at that point. And just like all salesmen, it works off commission. And of course, you can go the standard Patreon route where you have dedicated stuff for sale, dedicated content for sale that's hidden behind a paywall, or things like buy me a coffee, tip programs, things like that, where they physically can tip you for your content. You can set that stuff up too, but it all depends on whether or not your audience is willing to pay you for listening to your content. Now, it might sound harsh. Your content is free for a reason, and they may enjoy it being free. They may pay you for it. They may give you a tip. Who knows? People are weird. People pay for things you wouldn't even believe they pay for. They do it all the time. So you can throw things out there like a Patreon, like a Buy Me a Coffee, and just see what happens. Now, most people, when they give somebody money for something, they kind of expect something in return. So another way to make money is offering some kind of service plan or coaching plan and things like that. If you absolutely have to make money with your show, that is another direction, because you physically are selling something that the listener or the person buying it, I guess, physically gets. So that's another way to make money. Of course, if you want to do events or workshops, there's lots of these online events you can do where you charge entry to join the online workshop or things like that. These usually take big shows with big numbers to pull off big money with these kind of things. I mean, you can do any of these things with a small audience. You really can. But if you put yourself in the shoes of the listener to a show that's constantly selling them something, always in sales mode, the listener might be a little turned off by that. They might be like, this dude is just trying to sell me stuff. Why am I listening to his show? It's nothing but a big, giant commercial from start to finish. They're trying to sell me this course. They're trying to sell me this other thing. And then they got ads sprinkled in there too. And they're asking me to sign up for his Patreon, pay him for that. And they're asking me to sign up for other crap. I don't know. I didn't come here to be sold to. If I want to be sold to, I'll just go somewhere else, but it just feels like a big sales pitch in disguise. And I think the listeners might sniff that out and say, I don't know if this show is for me. So just be aware of these things. And as a creator, as a content creator, we're always looking for ways to make money with our podcast, or from our podcast, I should say. But that's the goal, but again here, money can be a bonus, but it's not the ultimate reason why you started your podcast in the first place. So if you ever thought, I need to make money with my podcast, or it isn't even real, well, I want you to hear this. You're already doing something incredible. You're building a show, you're creating, and you're learning. And if you decide to turn on those dollars, awesome, great, fantastic. But if you don't, your show still matters. And you matter. Podcasting is more than just dollars. It's more than just downloads. It's about the impact that we have on each other. It's the companionship that an audio podcast brings that a YouTube show never does and will never do. Audio podcasting, I like it because it makes me feel like I'm connected to you directly. And I appreciate you for staying here, and I appreciate you for listening. Are you hosting with Libsyn right now? And if you are you thinking about turning on these automatic ads in your show? If you do, let me know. I'd like to know how it works out. I might, as an experiment. I haven't decided quite yet. I might. Yeah, but I don't know. It just seems like I don't know if I want to piss off you, the listener, by flooding in a bunch of ads that you're probably just going to skip anyways, so I can make a few dollars. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence with it. But hey, if you turn it on for your show, let me know. If you are running ads, let me know. And how much money are you really making? Because what I've heard from the indie podcasting space is that it's not very much money. It's literally enough to pay hosting, and that's probably about it. And if being able to afford your podcast media host is a problem for you, well, you got bigger problems than just podcasting, let me tell you. Hey, thanks for listening all the way to the very end of this episode. Like I said, I appreciate you so much. I do this show for you, and I love podcasting. I love creating, and I love creating things for you. I love helping out. That's the thing. I absolutely love to help out people with podcasting. I love to explore new tools in podcasting and share these tools with you. I don't work for a podcasting company. I don't work for Libsyn. I don't work for any of these companies at all. I work for me and myself. And I do this because I want to do this. I do not get paid to sit here to do this. No company or person is paying me to podcast for you. I do this because I love it. And that's what I think podcasting is really about, is the passion and the community and the love of podcasting we all have. So you go out there and make your amazing podcast, and I'll catch you on the next one. Happy podcasting.
I got a mic and a story to tell in a world of noise. I'll ring the bell. Podtastic audio breaking through. A voice for the many, a guide for the new. Turn it up, let the world hear your words cut through loud and clear. Podtastic audio, it's your stage. Share your heart, break the cage. From the bedroom to the stars above, every story wrapped in care and love. You don't need fame, just be true. Your voice is gold and they'll find you. Turn it up, let the world hear your words cut through loud and clear. Podtastic audio, it's your stage. Share your heart, break the cage. From the bedroom to the stars above, every story wrapped in care and love. You don't need fame, just be true. Your voice is gold and they'll find you. light the fire.